Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Friday. Brian Kamenetsky and Andy Kamenetsky. LeBron James and Anthony Davis might be back for Friday night's game. Will it be enough to get the Lakers in the play-in? That's next on Locked On Lakers.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, and sometimes on weekends. We get this thing up as bright and early as we possibly can for you, no matter how you get your podcasts, where you get your podcasts, and Andy, always free. Free
Indeed.
For the listener.
Yep.
And for the viewer on Locked On Lakers on YouTube.
We don't truck with no paywalls.
That's right. We don't truck with that. We will get to a potentially interesting dynamic about the next Lakers head coach. Andy, if you are willing to yes and with me through a scenario in which Frank Vogel does not return to the Lakers next year, see if you can work with me there for
I'll play along
the show, please. Hey, it's April Fool's Day, Andy. What if we learn on Friday as LeBron James and Anthony Davis supposedly miraculously return from their respective injuries, and the Lakers are struggling to make in the play? What if this was all just an elaborate ruse, a season-long April Fool's Day joke that now the Lakers turn things around, they start playing great basketball, and roll into the first round against Phoenix after sweeping the play-in? What say you?
There are not enough hands with enough middle fingers on this planet for me to point in the Lakers' direction. But just let me just say on behalf of all Laker fans, were this the scenario and this was something orchestrated from high up, I guess, where they just were going to have this elaborate scheme to put everybody through misery leading up to this point where it was apparently all a joke, bleep you. Like, I mean, that is honestly, that's the dumbest joke I've ever heard. Like,
Russ goes for 40, 20, and 20 over the last 6. The other guys are awesome. Kendrick Nunn appears out of the tunnel like Willis Reed and just puts up huge numbers for the rest of the year.
It's the dumbest joke I've ever heard. Like, there's no payoff. There's no punchline. It doesn't make sense. There's nothing funny about it. And you know what? They didn't even spend this whole season making it weird and bizarre and to screw with our heads enough that you could find some type of entertainment value, because this has all been decidedly not entertaining.
That's
like
true.
if this was an attempt at some type of like long form Sacha Baron Cohen-esque, I don't know, skit. Let me just say,
art. It's performance art.
Right. Let me just say, if I may paraphrase a famous line, Brian, Jeannie Buss, I've watched Sacha Baron Cohen. I knew Sacha Baron Cohen. Sacha Baron Cohen was a friend of mine. Jeannie Buss, you're no Sacha Baron Cohen.
That sounds like a Linda Rambis joke, if anything, I'll tell you. I don't know. Dwight is like, I think 7 of 11 now from 3-point range. That's kind of funny. That's weird. Okay. You wanted weirdness, Andy. That's weird.
Yeah, Dwight in this game, and we should note the Lakers lost 122-109 to the Jazz in Utah in a game that honestly they played really respectable.
They played fine.
Like this was a respectable showing by the Lakers. Russ had a solid game, and Dwight Howard 21 points, 9 of 13 from the field, including a corner 3. And the next possession, he ended up getting an and one with a putback layup off an offensive rebound. And obviously it was the right play and Dwight did the right thing and he ended up converting the free throw. But I'm not going to lie, I was disappointed that he didn't dribble that offensive rebound out to the other corner for a heat check. Like, I really wanted to see Dwight do that. He admitted to after the game, Brian, for we've heard this a lot of times, like either on Twitter at Can Brothers or in the comments section for the Locked On Lakers YouTube channel, which everybody should be subscribing to. Whenever Dwight has a good game, and this was one of them for sure, Dwight was arguably the best Laker on the court tonight. People wonder why he does not play more, why his playing time's more sporadic, all that. Dwight conceded after the game. Yeah, I'm pretty beat. Like this 30 minutes is a lot.
That's a lot. Like, it's like somebody, I forget who it was. And I'm not trying to call people out on Twitter for this, but like, the question was, why does Frank Vogel seem to pull Dwight every time he gets hot? And the answer is because he can't play that many minutes. Like, definitionally, it doesn't. If Dwight hits his first 8 shots of the game and is flying up and down the court like Giannis, you still have to take him out after that because he's 30 whatever years old and he's not going to last through the entire game. And so, like, there's just a natural limit to that. And then people were up. We're just in an upset season because people were mad on Twitter too that the Lakers were. And by the way, tweet us at Cam Brothers throughout the game. We try to respond to people as much as we can. People were upset that the Lakers only had Trevor Ariza and Carmelo Anthony as backup centers. They let DJ go. One person said they let DeAndre Jordan go to sign DJ Augustine. And it's like, oh, wait, are we living now again in a world where people want DeAndre Jordan on the floor? Pick a lane, people.
Well, the other thing too, a reason that Vogel was playing Carmelo Anthony and or Trevor Ariza ostensibly as that backup 5 in pockets of this game is because Dwight, I guess his backup is really non-existent. They don't have a backup.
They don't have one. Right. Because Andy, they let DeAndre Jordan just walk. They just released him, Andy. They could still have him.
The other thing though is, in theory, Wenyen Gabriel is Dwight's backup if it's not Carmelo, if it's not Trevor Ariza, when Anthony, AD's out, LeBron's out, whatever. Wenyen Gabriel had 5 fouls in 11 minutes.
In 11 minutes. Yeah. He reverted back to what has been problematic form for Wenyen Gabriel, which is intense foul trouble.
Yeah. He's a more athletic Travis Knight when it comes to picking up fouls. In some ways,
when it comes to fouls. And like, you look at this game and Stanley Johnson gave him 2 points. Trevor Ariza gave him 6. Wenyen Gabriel had 5 fouls in 11 minutes. Austin Reeves only had 3 points. THT, who I still don't think is particularly healthy, had 11, but could only play 22 minutes. It's just the talent deficit was once again very large in this game. And so despite the fact that Utah came into the game playing not very well as a team, it lost I forget out of their last 10, but I think they had lost 5 in a row.
They just lost to the Clippers.
Yeah. And so, it was 5 straight losses for Utah coming into the game on Thursday. None of that matters. And, the Lakers said afterwards they thought they played at the very least significantly harder than they did on Tuesday against Dallas.
They were executing much better. I
think that's what it was. I didn't think they didn't play hard enough on Tuesday. I just didn't think they played well. They played better and hard on Thursday.
Yeah. I mean, however you want to put this, however you want to frame it, they really put up a respectable showing in this game when you consider the context. Hopefully, we will see LeBron and AD on Friday. There have been multiple reports that there is optimism brewing that they could end up playing in this game on Friday against the Pelicans at the Crypt, which I think it goes without saying this game is incredibly important. All of them are. But starting with this one with the Pelicans, a team that they are behind right now. They're behind San Antonio, but they're behind the Pelicans as well.
They're just behind. They're behind pretty much everyone. They're just behind.
If they want to give themselves an even semi-realistic chance to secure play-in viability and then try to create the mother of all historic runs through the playoffs, they got to get these dudes back. They got to get them back.
Yeah, and we had that debate earlier in the week on, what are they playing for? Should they be playing? Is it worth it to try to make the play-in game? And, aside from the only somewhat tongue-in-cheek feeling on my part that there's no way the Lakers should be allowed to pack it in if I've had to sit through whatever it is, 76 of these games. Like, no, they need to go out there and keep trying to play. And if it means being humiliated in New Orleans in some sort of play-in game on national television, so be it. That's the bed that they made. But also too, it's like you heard Robert Ory talk about it on the post-game show on Spectrum. It's like, if you can get in, everybody's 0-0. and all that stuff. And do you really believe that? Like, do you believe the Lakers? No, but that's you can't, if there's a chance for these guys to get themselves into the play-in, and it's not going to cause lasting damage to LeBron James and Anthony Davis to do it, then I think they need to try. And I am not one of these people who believes that the Lakers should pack it in until there is no chance for them to get in the play-in, which, could be 3 games from now. I don't know. But right now, I think they got to play.
Plus, LeBron's got 0.2 of a point advantage over Giannis and Joel Embiid in the scoring title race, and he's got 3 more games to play at minimum before he qualifies. Just saying.
You know what? I want to ask you about that before we get to the coaching stuff, because that statement that you made there will irritate a lot of people as to whether or not LeBron should come back to try to play for that scoring title. So tell me if you think that is a reasonable motivation next.
Plus, we also have one more update when it comes to a certain Laker.
Oh, right.
And
I keep forgetting that. Yeah, you're right. This is important.
His health status as well. But first, Locked On first before the first. Locked On
Easy
Lakers.
to forget. In fairness, easy to forget.
Yes. Brought to you by Bet Online. We are near the end of college basketball's big tournament, and for all the latest odds, contests, and player props, betonline.net is the #1 source for all your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. So head to the website today or use your mobile device. Learn more about the trends in action. Bet online where the games start.
As Andy mentioned, it was reported actually on Tuesday.
Yes,
by Chris Haynes of Yahoo. Kendrick Nunn is out for the season.
Well, it is expected. His sources have said it is expected. There's been no official word.
That's right. The Lakers haven't said anything. This is sources. The Lakers are still mum on the return of Nunn.
Real quick before we get to this question, Brian, of LeBron and the scoring title, I mentioned this earlier in the season that it felt like it was heading this way, and here we are now, and I think it's now safe to say this, that Kendrick Nunn felt like the new Aaron Mckee. And for those who don't remember, Brian and our first season covering the Lakers was the 2005-2006 season, Phil's first year back, the first of the Kobe Smush Kwame years, when Kobe's 2006 season, 35 points per game. But that
back
off
when
season
Smush seemed like a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, well, people forget he actually did for a while. He was a great story until he wasn't.
It got less fresh as it went along.
Yes. He drove the Smushcalade. His tricked out Escalade that was called the Smushcalade. We're not making a joke. This is true.
That's what he called it.
They did a special on the Smushcalade on, I believe, Fox Sports West. But anyway, the Lakers had earmarked a portion of their mid-level exception for either Aaron Mckee or Derek Anderson, and they eventually chose Mckee in what I wrote up was steadfastly the right decision. I thought he was a better fit than Derek Anderson, and also because Derek Anderson got hurt so often, Mckee felt like a more just sensible fit. Turned out the correct answer was don't sign either.
Yeah.
Aaron Mckee, during his first season with the Lakers, Brian averaged in 14 games 0.5 points per game, shooting a robust 25% from the field. He averaged 2.1 points per game per 36 minutes. The following season, in the only 10 games he played, because Mckee was injured constantly, he at least averaged 2 points per game as opposed to per 36.
Half a point, right.
And look, to be fair to Mckee, he was a really good dude. He was a great mentor to younger guys like Turioff, who Roney told us on multiple occasions he really looked up to him. But in terms of and his contract ended up pivotal because it got tossed into the Gasol deal. But all that said, I did not think the Lakers could possibly end up with a worse mid-level exception signing. Damn, Kendrick Nunn has made this a real thing.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I feel terrible for him.
based on the conversation, right? And look, Kendrick Nunn returning next year, hopefully healthy. Actually, because look, he is going to opt in to that $5 million. Actually, could be an important thing for the Lakers
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's like they're not gonna have access to sign a whole lot of people better than what theoretically he could be.
And I
He
feel
did not
terrible.
do this on purpose.
No, and look, Nunn, I think, went into this thing expecting to have a good season and opt out of this. So I feel bad for him. Like this has been, if nothing else, a potential financial hit for him beyond, the frustration of not playing this year. I feel terrible for Kendrick, but it really does feel like Aaron Mckee all over again, and I didn't think that was possible.
We'll see if the Lakers Brain Trust can flip him for Pau Gasol this offseason. Based on Thursday's episode of Locked On Lakers, I would not cross that off the list of eventualities. All right, you mentioned that LeBron has a little bit of work to do to qualify to win a scoring title. Some people would look at him coming back and playing in those games as selfish. Andy, do you think, let's just say LeBron knew that there was a 0% chance or that he could elevate the Lakers into a play-in or anything like that and was coming back purely to get a scoring title? Like, that's it. Like, he didn't bleep the team. I don't care. I just want a scoring title. Is that okay?
Is he playing any different than he normally would?
Nope. Just playing like LeBron. But really deep down in his soul of souls, the reason he wants to come back is to win a scoring title.
My only reservation about this, my only objection would be, as we've discussed on a few occasions and most recently earlier in the week, I have concerns about there being, a capped reservoir of LeBron juice at this stage of his
right.
career. The mileage and how long
it is officially zero sum. There's a limited amount of LeBron.
I firmly believe that. I'm sure LeBron would dispute this. He would tell me that I'm an idiot, that he knows his body better than anybody else. That being said, the last couple seasons, and frankly, the 3 of the 4 he's been here, gives me pause that I may be right. That being said, though, in terms of LeBron's motivation, no, it doesn't bother me.
We live in a weird place now where, like, we only judge sort of
Stuff
people
like
by
this matters, and getting a scoring title at his age would be incredibly impressive.
We only judge things purely like we judge everybody's individual accomplishments. How many all-star teams did you make? How many this? How many that? Did you win MVP? Like, all this stuff, but are strangely precious about people wanting personal goals, wanting personal records. Like, it's always been a very strange kind of juxtaposition to me how we do that. Like you said, LeBron James winning a scoring title at 37. Is he 37? He's 37 now.
Yeah.
Would be shocking in terms of what that means. I don't, but he doesn't play defense. Whatever. To do that at his age,
not winning a defense title, he's winning a scoring title.
I mean, he's gonna, look, if we give him DPOY votes, that's different.
That's a damn outrage.
It would. That is ridiculous.
That's outrageous.
Not that he can't turn it up sometimes, but he's not a DPOY. No. But like, you could tell that was something that bugged him when when he was talking about that on his show. The idea that he's never considered one of the great scorers. And I think it's partially because for all of his accolades, he's only won one scoring title.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to drive that point home, I'm willing to give LeBron a little leeway here to be a little bit selfish. If you consider that to be selfish, as long as he's not like leaping in front of people who are about to take open shots, stealing the ball and laying it in himself. If he's just playing like LeBron, go win a scoring title, dude.
Well, I mean, we've also seen evidence that whether the Lakers win or not, and more often it has been not, they have no chance unless LeBron puts up scoring title numbers anyway. So unless he is passing up open guys, with really good looks in order to take like contested, double covered, fadeaway jumpers,
hook shots,
glass. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, which again, I'm talking about LeBron playing completely out of character, because the one thing you can't say about him is that he doesn't involve other guys. I don't even know if we'll know the difference. So again, unless he knows, all right, I'm tapping the reservoir in a way that could come back to bite me next season or however much longer I play with the Lakers, but I want that
our
title.
nation's strategic LeBron reserves.
Yes,
basically.
Yes, exactly. He is basketball oil right now. Like, unless it's something like that, then no, I don't have a problem. I don't know if we'll know the difference.
Yeah, I just feel like as a sports society, we need to kind of figure this out. Like, this whole thing about like, are guys allowed to try to get individual accomplishments in team sports? We need to do better. Okay, so Andy mentioned earlier in the show that the Lakers may, in fact, be making a coaching change this offseason. Again, I just need you to entertain the hypothetical. Is it possible that the guy who would replace him was on the opposite sideline in Utah on Thursday? We'll talk about that next.
Locked On Lakers brought to you by Built Bar. Eating smart but enjoying it has never tasted better because you can treat yourself without feeling guilty with Built Bars. If you've not tried the Puffs, you are missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. They are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow, fluffy marshmallow, but not just a protein bar. They are a treat covered in 100% real chocolate. They got great flavors like cinnamon churro, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. All of them are going to feel like your favorites. And unlike a candy bar, which is usually like 200 to 300 calories worth of just empty nonsense, most Built Bars, they're just 130 calories, only 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, but 17 grams of protein, and that's the good stuff. So go to Built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15, get 15% off your order. Again, promo code LOCKED15, 15% off at Built.com.
That was probably our most professional read in a little while. That was really well done. I like that.
Thank you.
So Quin Snyder, there a lot of time on David Locke's show, the Locked On Jazz show. They talk about Quin Snyder's future. He is believed to be on the hot seat if the Jazz don't advance in the playoffs this year. If they're a one and done team this year. I know Utah winning on Thursday night, it gives them 46 wins for the season. But they have been kind of here for the last 3 or so years and feel like they might be a little bit stuck. And there are a lot of people who believe that Snyder will be a free agent himself if the Jazz don't advance. He would be, I think, Andy, one of the most sought after coaches available. Probably the biggest name on the market. I can't think of anybody out, just off the top of my head who would be a bigger name that would be available than Quin Snyder.
There's nobody that you hear about potentially losing their job, like Frank Vogel, Tom Thibodeau. There's been talk about that with the Knicks. I have not heard anybody that I think would attract even close to the amount of attention and suitors than Quin Snyder. I mean, I think he'd be the hottest name on the market, and it's probably not even close.
368, 262 is his record for the career. The Jazz have won no fewer than 44 games in his tenure. And keep in mind, 44 games in a 72-game season. In an 82 games, in his last 82-game seasons, he's been around 50 wins every year.
Former Laker assistant for people who may forget.
Yeah, that's right. So there's a Laker connection there.
Yeah. He was on Mike Brown's staff, correct?
I believe so. So assuming the Lakers fire Frank Vogel, there will be a ton of speculation as to whether or not the Lakers would go out and get Quin Snyder. What's interesting to me about
Mark Stein, by the way, just so people know, this is not us just supposing. Right. Mark Stein, a longtime veteran NBA writer, on his Substack, reading, quote, "I've likewise heard Snyder's name posed as a probable Lakers candidate should the Lakers and Frank Vogel part ways." He also noted that Snyder could actually be targeted maybe as a successor to Pop in San Antonio. Pop right now is, obviously reached the all-time winning coaching mark. He's going to be retiring at some point, but in any event, he's been linked to the Lakers, I think, by a lot of people.
So what's interesting to me about this is Quin Snyder the right coach for the Lakers? Because because that's a difficult question to answer for a lot of reasons. But one, you got personnel and all these other things are relevant to that. And it's also a question that we'll have a lot more time to answer in the offseason when other candidates become clear and whatever. The more interesting question to me, Andy, and it's related, I think, in some to the conversation that we had with Eric Pincus of Bleacher Report on Thursday's show, which, by the way, is a great show. If you missed it, you really ought to go back and listen to it if you want a great breakdown of how the Lakers got to this place this season. Do you think the Lakers would do what is required to get a premier, whether you think he's in that group or not? He would be categorized there and would expect to be paid that way and all this other stuff. Do you think they would do what it takes to get a premier head coach?
I don't know. I'm not confident that they would. I would be lying, Brian, if I said that I was confident that they would, in part because, and this is something that stretches back before this current regime, but in terms of the people running the front office, I think this was something that went on with Jim Buss and Mitch Kupchak, basically everything since Phil Jackson's retirement. In that time since 2011 to where we are now, they have gone from Phil retiring to Mike Brown to Mike D'Antoni to Byron Scott to Luke Walton to Frank Vogel to expected, to both of us, TBD. And the only thing those men have in common is that they have nothing in common. Like, there is no through line between all of those guys that I mentioned that you can point at and say, okay, yeah, this is what you can clearly see the Lakers are looking for in a coach. And then when you look at Frank Vogel and the hiring process for him, they went to Ty Lue first, then Monty Williams. But Ty Lue seemed like the obvious choice to bring in there. He's somebody with Laker ties. He was a member of 2 championship teams. He is an extremely well-respected coach. He has a great relationship with LeBron. He's somebody that they know. You and I both lobbied at the time, like, no brainer, bring in Ty Lue. And it became really clear during the negotiations that they were really meeting with him to ultimately, if nothing else, flirt with him saying no. And we know this because
I was about to say, it's not that that people didn't think it was going to happen. They had a cake. I mean, like, Ty Lue had a welcome Ty cake. Right. I mean, like, he was ready to go.
But they offered him a deal that was only 3 years, tied very transparently to the length of LeBron's deal. And this was something our friend Om Yomasuk at ESPN wrote a really good piece people can check out. It came out about a week ago about just the coach that Ty Lue has emerged into. And he is considered one of the best in the league, rightly. And he talked about that hiring process. And he said, quote, LeBron's been in the league, 18 years. He won 4 championships. So that don't mean you're automatically going to win because you have LeBron. So I do coach with a chip on my shoulder because, like, people say, oh, he can't do it without LeBron. He can't. The job I've been able to do with the team now, like Spo was the same way in Miami. He was talking about just coming into his own, being less connected directly to LeBron. It's also made me want to be better because not having LeBron, now I've got to show people I know my stuff. Like, I can really coach. Like, I still got to get a lot better, but I just want to prove to people that I can coach. And the Lakers doing something like that in this negotiating process where it was so clear, we see you as LeBron's guy. Just like when they hired Byron Scott. Byron Scott was very much there to be Kobe's guy for the last 2 years of Kobe's career. That's insulting to somebody like Ty Lue.
It's a couple things. It's the lack of length of the contract for a guy who had won a title. And, even if that is a thing that generally, unless you're the Lakers, teams respect and will kind of pay for it. Like, there are very few coaches who are in the league who have won titles.
It's a shorter deal than Luke Walton got, and Ty Lue was a more accomplished coach than Luke Walton.
Yes. But not only that, they also were reportedly trying to prescribe the coaches that could be and would be on Lue's staff, not letting him have the autonomy to pick his own staff. Now, you can pull that off with Frank Vogel, who had just gotten fired by Orlando and, was out of the league at that point. And, he had very little leverage to get back in. But to do it to Ty Lue at the time,
Or to Monty Williams.
Or to
who
Monty
also
Williams
turned him
was
down.
insulting. And we said it at the time that it was insulting. And he said at the time it was insulting. And it makes me wonder, would they value, if they decided Quin Snyder was their guy, do they value him enough to not nickel and dime on that stuff, to not think that they are smarter in the front office, to not think that they can tell him what to do? I don't know. I mean, in some senses, they've gone after the big name. Mike D'Antoni, instead of Phil Jackson, where, there was a contrast there. Yeah, but Mike D'Antoni was still a splashy hire. It was just a, unexpected one in that sense. Luke Walton was a guy who was considered to be a splashy hire. Like, they fired Byron. I flat out asked Mitch Kupchak, did you let Byron go like faster because you were worried Luke wouldn't be available if you waited another week? He said, yes.
Yep.
And so, like, they thought they were getting the next up and coming coach. It's like, and to your right, like they've never picked a lane. Byron Scott was clearly a caretaker coach, and Mike Brown had binders. I think they devalue. They've shown that they devalue everything that isn't a star.
Yeah.
They devalue supporting players. They devalue the middle class of their roster. They devalue head coaches. I'm not even talking about like Frank Vogel deserved 3 more years because he won a title. I just mean there's a different context to a coach that has a long-term contract, that has the backing of the organization and all of that stuff, where you're not sitting there speculating on their future for every 5 minutes. And the Lakers have undercut Vogel by how they've treated him over the last year and a half. Would they do that to Quin Snyder? That shows that they devalue what the coach represents on your team. It's not about Frank Vogel per se. It's about, what does your coach represent? And they devalue it. And so I agree with you. I don't know if they would go out and give Quin Snyder or someone at his level the autonomy to do what he would want to do.
Look, if it turns out we're wrong, I
hope I'm wrong.
I will happily own it, because that's good.
Absolutely.
I am more than thrilled to end up wrong with this. You can at me. Seriously.
Yeah, it's not even like, I don't think, I just don't know. I should know the answer to that question. The answer should be,
right.
Yeah, obviously if Quin Snyder wants to pick a staff, and of course they'll pay Quin Snyder and give him a 5th year and guarantee a contract, where, because he's the best coach available and they're the Lakers.
And maybe they will.
The issue isn't that I don't think they'll do that. The answer is, I don't know. And that's disturbing. I should know the answer to that question. The answer should be an obvious, unqualified, of course they will. But I don't know. All right, Andy. So we'll see what happens on Friday.
Big game.
April Fool's Day.
Yep.
New season starts on Friday. You're so trying not to flick off the cameras on your
we're not allowed to
iPad.
do that sort of thing.
No, you're really not. All right. And then, hopefully things turn around. We'll see how they get there. They're once again behind San Antonio, but maybe after they'll head into the weekend ahead of them. We don't know. Locked On Lakers on YouTube. See everyone on Monday.